Good morning and welcome to the NCCR Podcast. I'm your host, Devanda Smith, alongside my lovely co-host,
Kim Matson.
Wait a second.
Wait.
Can we have a do-over? Clearly, Devandis is not in the house today, but that was my best impersonation. That's about as animated as I'm going to get. So thank you for joining us this morning as our co-host.
Can you do that one more time?
Yeah.
Steve Matson.
We'll be here next week as well, so steady yourselves. So Ryan gave the sermon Sunday on the heels of being at camp with many, many young people. But I have to say I appreciated his free flow of consciousness, if you will, on the topic of hope. Yeah.
Yeah, I too. A true blessing for all of us, I think, to have Pastor Ryan on our staff. He brings such passion and such enthusiasm. And in this topic of hope, he started talking about, and used the term hopeless, the world around us being hopeless. And I thought about that a lot since Sunday, and I kind of almost would like to change that. Instead of saying they're hopeless, because I think sometimes we think of people hopeless, we kind of give up on people who are hopeless.
Right.
And I don't think we want to give up on people, but what we want to think of people in the world we live in is without hope, without the hope of Christ. And I just found it really interesting, and Ryan did, I think, a great job of talking about kind of the views of hope in the Old Testament view of kind of a waiting, trusting, waiting expectantly, to a New Testament view of hope and a focus around the person of Jesus. And I thought that was a really important contrast, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that, the hope that we have in Christ is a profound hope, right? And I don't think that, he did pose the question, about how we talk to people about that and what that looks like in kind of our workaday. I think we're more inclined to talk to people about our faith or being a follower, but maybe not specifically about the hope in Christ that comes along with that. And then I kind of contrasted that. I wrote in my notes that, it's versus the kind of hope where people keep their fingers crossed. The
worldly hope.
You hope that something good happens, or you hope the outcome is a particular way. But when you have hope in Christ, those things kind of fly out the window, because we're confident in what the response is going to be for us. So I like that contrast, and it's like so many that we've been able to contrast. Even just down to like believer or follower of Christ, and the difference between the kind of love that we have in Christ versus the kinds of different, I love green beans kind of love. So there's always in the simplest of things, there's always a kind of a yin and a yang to some of those things. But the difference, of course, is being Christ-filled and knowing that He is our hope. So. And
I think for Ryan too, it was really, I always again appreciate his passion and sharing his story.
Yep.
And while he didn't spend a lot of time, and he's done that previously for us all, and I find it really helpful and encouraging in a way. And that connects me to another thought that I'll get to in a minute. But for Ryan to be willing to share that passion, but he also shared something that I think is really important for us, and it reminds me of some of the message that Pastor Steve shared with us a few weeks ago, and I think you talked about it on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. How easy and how hard and then almost how impossible this journey can be.
Yep.
And it would impossible unless Christ is there and the Spirit is with you. But I think about the encouragement that we all need. We all have a story. Your story is way different than my story.
That is true.
And my story might not be made for TV. Yours might be made for TV. I don't know.
Yeah, coming soon to a public station near you.
I think my encouragement, it's almost like, and Pastor Steve talked about, Barnabas, and I didn't know a lot, but again, just a little plug for our resource center, and stop by and see Al and Jan and Hutchinson's if they're around the resource center, because they put out a book the other day that I saw and I took home and read. It's called The Barnabas Way. And it really talks about, Barnabas, and really it was labeled the son of encouragement because, how do we play a role, in this world that's without hope, and to provide the hope that we have, to share the hope that we have, and to do it in an encouraging way, being willing to look at, as they described in this book, and I think maybe even Pastor Steve referenced, the second chancers, the ones that really need a second chance. And so that's where hope really comes in.
Yeah. And I wrote down the word assurance too, because for, kind of to piggyback on what I said just previously, the knowingness that we have when we have hope in Christ, and the assurance that comes along with that is really profound. And I think to Ryan's point, he mentioned, how to share that with other people. And, you start with focusing on the truth. Why are you so hopeful? Somebody might ask you that. And it's because, the Bible tells us so, to use that lyric from the song. But he did have some Bible verses. I just wrote down Proverbs 13, verse 12, and then 1 Corinthians 2, verse 9. He had others too, so feel free to go back and look at the sermon to gather those other ones, because I wasn't real quick to write those down. And then, getting involved, and then in community and other places, even in church, and then sharing in relationship with others. I mean, that could be small groups, that could be just any number of things. Your neighbors, just being in community with other people, and those are just good ways to connect with other folks. So, and then we were talking about this earlier yesterday. We were driving back from somewhere, and over in Linwood by the H Mart, there's a bank, because we had just been talking about doing the podcast, and it's called the Bank of Hope. I'm like, I wonder what they keep in there.
The Bank of Hope.
Bank of Hope. Might have to go make a withdrawal or a deposit. I don't know. One of those.
Yeah.
Anyway, so usually we end with a question, and mine today is, do you specifically speak to people about hope? And I can say truthfully, I don't go down that path really when I'm speaking about my faith and my walk. Hope hasn't really been at the forefront of those conversations, I got to say. So thank you, Ryan. That was that was an encouragement for me to maybe start leading with that a little bit more.
Yeah, agree. So what did you bring today?
Well, today I was inspired to just bring a big old box of crackers. And my thought behind that was, they're delicious. Everybody recognizes what they are. They go with pretty much everything.
Yeah. There's some combinations here that you could.
I mean, you can't go wrong with a saltine. Let's not kid ourselves.
You like it with soup and
peanut butter. Sardines.
And there's a couple of Hershey Kisses right on top. So
yes,
a saltine, a little bit of peanut butter, and
oh wow!
Hershey
I think we just made something up.
Yeah.
And Nabisco, if you're watching,
yeah,
still looking for that sponsor.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're kind of going to wrap it up here. Thank you for being my co-host.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't foul everything up for Devandis.
I think it was amazing, and we will see you next week. We will see you next week, because you know who's going to be gone
if you'll
again.
If you'll have me back.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.